Welcome everyone to our CCNA Cyberops class for April 26th. And today I got a couple things. First off, I've had a question, and the question was, does this CCNA Cyberops class have the same DoD designation as CCNA Security and Security Plus? At this time, the answer to that is no. I think they're working. That takes a very long time. What I want to show you, basically, you can see if you get CCNA Security, you do get CNSS 4011 and DoD 8570 recognition. So if you pass CCNA Security, you get that. CCNA, oops, wrong place. I'm going to Cisco Live, which, by the way, if you ever get a chance, that is just a phenomenal time. But right now, it does not have that certification or that DoD standard. They are working on some standard, but I don't know exactly what that is going to be at this point. So I'm pulling out all my little pieces. So that's what Nicholas asked about, and I just wanted to address that question. Are there any other questions as we get started? Harry, thank you very much for getting in contact with me. I do appreciate that about the Net 125. I want to show you something really cool. It is something that we have here. This is what's been occupying all my time. This is our Vertiv Smart Row system, which went live on Tuesday. As far as we don't have any gear in it, but it is running. The CRVs, the air conditioners are running, and the UPSs are up and going. We do not have a generator in yet, but this is what has been about to make me go crazy. But you'll notice we got 7 different slots for a gear, so it's completely self-contained. It has a cold side and a hot side, so very neat. It's called a Vertiv Smart Row, so that is something that's been occupying all my time. Rodney put a question in: if you pass Cyberops, will it reset your exam? Yes, it does. It will renew your window. How do you spell it? V-E-R-T-I-V is how you spell Vertiv. V-E-R. It's Liebert. Liebert makes it. It's called a Smart Row. Liebert is actually Vertiv now, but Smart Row system is Vertiv. Really good. You can drop this system into a 100-degree warehouse, and it will, since it's self-contained, you don't have to add any additional cooling to your system. So, if you're wondering why I'm about to pull my hair out, here's why. This is definitely one of the things I've been doing. A couple other things I want to do. First off, if you are around Chapter 10, I know when you look at the actual class listing, you should be a little bit further. But if you're around Chapter 9 or 10 right now, you're in good shape. Do not freak out. Technically, class ends May 9th, but you know we can go a little bit past that. We will be shutting down Net Labs the week after our class ends. Will have absolutely no effect on you because all of your stuff is local. But be aware that I will shut down my entire system as we move over to this new system. If you're in another one of my classes, that could affect you that week, but otherwise, it should not have a big impact on you. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about endpoint security, and a lot of this you've already really seen. Again, it's not something completely new. What is new is going to be when they come in and talk about some of these Cisco technologies. Now, obviously, endpoints are anything that's a host versus network infrastructure. This can be laptops, desktops, printers. One of the things that I sent out to you was the fish tank in a casino that got hacked and resulted in them losing 10 gigs of user data. So an endpoint can be a fish tank. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to think about what's on your network. We've got different types of host-based protection. Obviously, you've got Windows Defender. You've got different types of anti-malware, anti-spyware, and antivirus. But these different items here, as far as different types of approaches, this is straight out of Security Plus, a signature-based approach where you got various signatures that recognize the malware. heuristics, where you look at the general features of certain types of malware. Does the malware connect to certain ports? Does it have a tendency to go to IRC channels? Those types of things. And then a behavioral approach, which looks at what is a normal set of behaviors. How much traffic does this, and here's how they call it the fish tank, by the way. How much traffic should a fish tank be sending out to the internet? The answer to that is not much. And then suddenly when they see it sending out 10 gigs worth of data, they realize, that's a problem. Started looking and realized the fish tank had been hacked. So kind of a neat way of looking at analysis of an endpoint. Cisco, here's a little bit of their, what I would say, the Cisco part of this Cisco course, talking about the different things that Cisco has available in their product suite, such as AMP, the Advanced Malware Protection, the Email Security Appliance, which does spam filtering, tries to take out malicious emails before they even get to the Cisco, or excuse me, to the user's email box. The Web Security Appliance, and by the way, if you look at our class, let me actually see if I can do this. I might do it like this. If you look at the class and look again at, hopefully you notice they refresh the front page too, which is kind of nice. And give me just a second. Wait for it. Wait for it. And no, I have not caught up on grading, folks. I apologize. See Exhibit A, which is the exhibit of the data center. Notice right here, describe the functions of these network security systems deployed on the host. So AMP, Web Security Appliance, Email Security Appliance. These are items that are on the test, or at least on the test objective. So you need to know what these do, and at least at a basic sense. I wouldn't spend a ton of time trying to learn every nuance of Web Security Appliance or Email Security Appliance, but just be aware of what they do in their basic use. Okay, so filtering of websites, blacklisting, that's what the Web Security Appliance can do. It can also be tied in even to Talos to do some things where they can be pulled down to see the blacklist on a dynamic basis. So AMP uses that Talos information, the intelligence from Talos to protect the endpoints. It is able to send out anything it doesn't understand. It can actually grab it, pull it, send it out to Talos. Talos can analyze it and try to decide what it is and then make a decision about whether or not to mark it as something that's nefarious or something that's malware or spyware. It has the ability, if you join with the Talos system, AMP can take those signatures and it can actually identify and block based on exploit intent. So during an actual attack, it will watch, and if it says, okay, this is not malware, and then it continues to move towards, I don't know whether it's malware or not, so I'm going to allow it. That's what AMP's doing, but it's monitoring it, and as it breaks a threshold to say, wait a minute, this is acting like malware, it will then take it and actually start blocking it on an automatic basis, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, AMP does have some after-attack capabilities. So it gives the team the ability to look at what happened, figure out how it got in, what the vector was, what they need to do to change it, and then attempt to control it. So you see it's flexible. You can deploy it on the ASA, on firewalls, or firepower firewalls, the ESA, WSA, and the Meraki MX. So, and I actually did, one of the things I suggest is to watch these videos. So go out here and watch the video on AMP, because even though it's it's not a super long, I even watched a couple other of them as far as the chalk talks. But this is a really good one. I want one of these boards. It's one of those light boards. But I suggest watching all of those for these products because it will really help you when it comes to taking this exam. Host-based firewalls. Pretty typical stuff. Windows firewall. You got IP tables, NF tables, which is the successor to IP tables, and your TCP wrapper. So all these are different items that are different types of host-based firewalls. And I don't think this is anything new. Are there any questions on those? Host-based intrusion. One of the things, Can somebody tell me why we would want to use host-based intrusion and what host-based intrusion helps with versus network-based intrusion?
Well, with host-based, you can actually, it's at an individual level, so you can catch it like on the end user side and see exactly what's coming into your network, and it's the lowest level of protection. Whether with network-based, you're looking at the whole network.
Yeah. That's the big thing really is exactly what we're looking at right here. This is HTTPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my connection, depending on how it's set up, I can set up an HTTP connection, HTTPS connection, and you will not be able to see the actual traffic across the network because it's encrypted. Now, there are some, most next generation firewalls do SSL decryption or can. Exactly. Harry's sitting there talking about, we're not decoding and decrypting network traffic. Exactly. If you have host-based intrusion detection, it actually sees the information before it's encrypted and after it is decrypted. So it makes it easier for you to see that. Now, again, next generation firewalls actually have the ability to do SSL decryption or to do decryption. But that gets into some issues too because, you know, what happens there. Nicholas makes a very good point too. What about an attack from a host on the same LAN? If you're not monitoring every port, you may not get the information. So host-based intrusion has a very important role. And then Carl talks about defense in depth, and that is very true because guess what? If you have both host-based intrusion detection and that endpoint information like with AMP or Global Protect, which is what it is with Palo Alto, then you're able to actually monitor everything on the network and what's going on with your host. Can somebody tell me a negative of having an agent on your host?
What about a false positive?
Performance. Yeah, all of you are saying performance. Performance is a big one. Plus, think of this. I have a couple people here that are on from their phone. So if your phones are connecting or your tablet's connecting, do you have an agent that can work on that particular device? Keisha, false positive is another big one, especially when you think about AMP being able to block things. You may have it blocking certain information. But so there's positives and negatives based upon HIDs. These anomaly-based, policy-based, these are the same things we talked about in Security Plus with HIDs. So you are seeing some overlap, which I think is actually good for your students. So they realize that the stuff they're learning is not just in one class only. So OSEC, this is something I would kind of know. Cisco AMP is a possible HIDS product. Alien Vault, Tripwire, open source HIDS security, OSEC. So, or OSEC, however you, OSEC, however you say it. You know, potato. But here's the problem with OSEC, only has agents for Windows platforms. So it has to be something that's careful there. And I have not worked on it. But here again, you can click here and you can go learn more about it. And I spent a little time just looking around, reading what this is before I went and took my first SecFund test. So attack surface. So this is, I had to actually answer some questions today for a student who was doing a research paper on cybersecurity, and they asked me, how have I seen, or how do I think cybersecurity has changed over the past few years? And I think the thing that I have seen, obviously, is an expanding attack surface. We've got so many more devices connected to the network. The other thing I'm seeing, and that many researchers are talking about, is the advent of nation states using artificial intelligence. No matter how good we are, we're not faster than an AI. No human will ever be able to beat an AI, unfortunately. We're just not able to do it speed-wise. So the use of AI for attack tools will necessitate the use of artificial intelligence for defense tools. So that's something I see. This entire cloud infrastructure, moving things out to the cloud to where, you know, a large amount of our workload is in the cloud and will be in the cloud. So that's a big issue. Mobility. I've signed up. Carl, I think you're going to Cisco Live too. I was signing up for my panels. How many people on here are thinking about going to Cisco Live or are going to Cisco Live? Okay, Carl's going. Anybody else? I know it's extremely expensive. It's I think it's $2,100 if you get to early bird and $23 if you don't. But one thing I would suggest, if any of you are actually going to be there, oh, Cisco credits, yeah. I wish there was a way for vendors to donate Cisco credits to schools. That would be very cool. But if you go, let me know, email me, and let's all try to catch up. I'm at, I won't tell what hotel I'm at on this recording, but I'll let you know if you email me what hotel I'm at, and we can try to get together at the thing. But the reason I bring up Cisco Live is not just to gloat at the fact that I get to go, but to let you know that you would be amazed the number of sessions that were on 5G. I bet. I was very surprised at the number of sessions. There are really pushing 5G and what 5G is going to mean to the mobility market. So that's something, 20% of the traffic. I actually think if 5G goes through, it'll be more than 20% by 2021. So that's something to keep in mind. Blacklisting and whitelisting. Blacklisting and whitelisting, you've got the ability to do that with local group policies. You can actually set that up to where you can only allow certain applications to run on a Windows box. So you can don't run specified apps or run only specified apps. So blacklist dictate what are not permitted to run, whereas whitelist says what can run. I would know the difference between them. And then there's a discussion here about whitelisting and blacklisting, so you can actually go out and watch that, which is kind of cool. And spam hosts, so there's all kind of different things here that you can read. System-based sandboxing. This is Cuckoo Sandbox. You can do malware analysis. You can actually have malware samples submitted so they can look at them. There's all types of things. Cisco App submits it. There's ways to do that. One of the things I sent you that Vuln Hub. That's really cool. Somebody said, well, what if I had vulnerability, or what if it's got viruses built into it? Well, if it does, put it in a sandbox. Don't put it on your network to begin with. And they've got a sandbox here for this. Let's see what time it is. Okay, I want to make sure I've got some time here. I want to talk about something real quick before we go any further. I presented this at a partner get-together just the other day, and what I wanted to do is I just went through and looked at all of the 13 chapters inside of the curriculum. And I looked and said, if I have a student who has completed Intro to Cybersecurity and Cybersecurity Essentials, what chapter can I spend less time on? VirusTotal.com. That's a good one too. Rodney put in there, VirusTotal.com home upload. You can upload it and have it checked for viruses. But I could spend, if they've had these two courses, I can reduce the amount of time I spend in Chapter 7. That's really kind of what I wanted to do here. If your students have had Introduction to Networks on RSE or CCENT level, then Chapters 5, or excuse me, it's really Chapter 4 and 5, but Network Protocols and Network Infrastructure, those two chapters you do not have to spend a huge amount of time on. All right. If you have a student who has Scaling and Connecting, same thing. If they've got Security Plus, then you're going to be able to spend less time on the cryptography chapter and on the principles of network security and on the network attacks, the deeper look. I put gray there because you're still going to spend time there, but not as much. So this gives you an idea. If you've got a student who's completed all of these, then these chapters you can spend a little less time on. It also, I didn't even put in here if they have Windows classes or Linux classes, but this gives you an idea of how you can kind of figure out what you want to do with each one of the chapters in this particular class. The other thing I want to show you is something I've been wanting to show you for some time. And I'm going to reveal to you, here is the beta CCNA Cyberops Net Labs pod. I was given permission by Net Labs to show you this. And you will see that it is a pod of 5 machines. It has our 4 machines that we typically have inside of our virtual environment. And it also has a Windows client. So you will be able to do the Windows labs without having to use your host machine. So all of you who have Net Labs out there, this is in the testing phase. I'm actually, one of the things I wanted to do today, and what I'm going to do today, is I want to do a lab on this with you, because one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that, where's it at? No, hold on a second. One of the things that I have noticed, and I've talked to you about, is I am prepping for the 210-255 SecOps. And so when you look through the SecOps and you look at the different things, notice, look at this, interpret the output of a malware analysis tool such as AMP, Threat Grid, and Cuckoo Sandbox. So you can see how these chapters overlap. Okay, some of this information is inside of the SecFund and some is in SecOps. So be aware of that. But as we move down here, one of the things that is actually, you see a bunch of interpret, describe, again, define. But you get down here and it says extract files from a TCP stream when given a PCAP file in Wireshark. So here's an example of it's asking you to do a task. Well, guess what? We have a lab that maps directly to that. Now, this is not the lab rewritten for the environment yet. They haven't given me access to those new labs. But guess what? You just ignore part one, and this lab works fine inside of our Net Labs environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull over here, and I'm going to go to Net Labs, and I'm going to walk through this lab with you. So we go to Cyberops Workstation. We go into our terminal window, and the first thing is just go to that lab support file. So I'm just going to go here, and let's go to our PCAPs. Do an LS. You can see in here we've got a, let me actually, there I get my Windows commands messed up. All right, so now we're going to be able to look here, and we're going to open up this file, in the PCAP. That's going to pop up here. And now we're going to see, as you look through here, one of the things, there's the nimda.exe. Now we can right click on this and we can follow the HTTP stream, and it gives you information about all what's going on here. And by the way, this may be something that's useful as you're doing your hands-on final, which we do have 2 people who finished this class completely. Congratulations to them for finishing. Carl is one, and I think Karen's the other one off the top of my head. But this gives you information. So that's the first part of the lab, where you just go through and you're going to follow the stream and look at what's going on, and you know what the actual command was, what it came back, the server it's coming from, and then you can also program cannot run in DOS mode, and you can go on down. And as you go to the bottom, you can get more information on this particular file. You see, it's actually, when you look at this file, it's actually the Windows command cmd.exe file. When you actually look down in here, you can see that. If you want to recreate the file, however, you click on that same HTTP. In fact, I'm going to clear this, clear the expression. And I'm going to go File, and I'm going to, let me go back here, File, Export Objects, HTTP. And there it is. You've got the nimda.exe. So this is grabbing that file and saving it. And I'm just going to save it into that same area we were at. I'm not going to change it. So click Save. And now if I go back over here and do an ls-la, let's just do an ls. Let's go to lab support files. You can see now that I've got a file in here that I've saved, this w32 nimda.exe. And the reason it was in there when I first started the labs, I'd done the lab earlier today. Okay, so I extracted from that HTTP conversation the file that was downloaded with the get command. All right, and then now obviously I can also go in here and you can use the Linux command file w capital, and it will tell you that it's a Windows executable file for Windows. So this lab is something I would definitely look at, since it is it's a lab. It's discussed in the curriculum, and it is an item that is actually on the SecOps listing. Okay, so that's one of the few things I can actually see that you have to do hands-on. I would say would be a hands-on item. So these other are all pretty much defining, describing, applying, mapping. So it's not, you know, to me, map means drag and drop. That's my personal way of describing that. That would be, to me, that'd be a drag and drop. Just right up one side down the other. Okay. So again, that's one of the things that's in this particular interpret basic regular expressions. That's going to ask you to look at one they've got and tell what it's doing. Same thing with the interpret up there, but this is one of the few hands-on items that I can see that would be actually in the SecOps section. Are there any questions about that lab? This, by the way, if you haven't seen this, this is the VE version of Net Lab. So it's very nice. There's no, how much do you think it? SecOps is hands-on, Carl, very little. I would say there's very little, because when you look at the document, it's literally almost everything is describe, identify, compare. You know, these are things that scare me down in here, is when you're getting to NIST, IR standards, all the different standards, CCERT standards, and all these. You know, so I get confused with all those different standards. So I don't see there being a great deal of hands-on. Again, this one, real women date engineers in combat armor. That's the only way I can remember that one. But that's an acronym for being able to handle the cyber chain kill model. And we've already went over that. So they definitely are, in this course, things blend without doubt. Neat things about this, if you haven't seen it, you can actually undock. So you can bring it out if you have multiple. You have multiple windows open at one time. And the Win client, you can undock. And it does, one of the things I'll tell you once you get this up and running, if you ever need to send control delete, there's a send control delete. And you can actually do actual size, which will make it the actual size. So this is, here's the Windows box that's on this. I'm not, you know, there's the toolbox with all the different things for PCAPs and all that will be there for the different labs. So all the labs are being rewritten to handle this, which I think will be very nice. Not that there's a problem with running it locally, but the bigger problem is your students more than likely do not have PCs at home that can run all of these different machines on it. So it'll be nice to have this for our net labs. Release date on this is probably this summer. I'm hoping they can get it out this summer. Part of it's me getting through doing all the hands-on. Are there any questions? Yep, Carl, what you got?
Were you ever able to recreate the problems I reported in those?
Hold on a second, Carl. I can't hear you. Can you turn your mic up just a little bit? Hold on a minute. I might. Go ahead. I can turn you up. Go again. I got you.
All right. So were you ever able to recreate the problems I reported in those later labs where the log files wouldn't load per the instructions?
I was not, but I'm gonna check it in here and see what happens. So I'm hoping that it was just a one-off issue, but because when I did them, I didn't have that issue. But not saying it won't, but you'll notice there's no content because the labs haven't been loaded yet. So. Other questions? Okay. Jump back in here, just kind of network profiling, server profiling. This would be when you're trying to do your reconnaissance. You're going in and doing scans or Nmap or other tools. And here we have the anomaly detection, figuring out very basic algorithm on looking at what is considered to be a baseline and what is not. Depending on looking at flows here, the number of flows that are going through. I actually have a very interesting thing going on with my cybersecurity group out of Virginia Beach. So we go up next Friday to do a run-through, a beginning run-through. By the way, we will not have class next Thursday because I do have to go up there. I leave on Thursday. But they did an RFP to provide a vulnerability assessment / penetration test on a fictitious company so that they can learn how to do that, to do an RFP, because a lot of what we do, I'll be quite honest with you, that entire data center was me doing RFPs and trying to figure out the best way to get that paid for. Carter, you still have a question? Get your hand up. Oh, okay. This, the common vulnerability and scoring system is a big part of what's going to be, let's see where it was. I'm pretty sure it was right. And where was it? It was on this one right here. Describe the terms that are defined in CVSS 3.0. So this is something that we need to spend time with for our students so that they can understand this common vulnerability scoring system. They need to understand the different groups. So the base metric group, which is used to figure out the base score on a particular vulnerability. You can look at the exploitability metrics. So how complex it is, what a vector it uses, what privileges are required, what user interaction is required. Then those base metrics also look at exploitability and they look at impact. In other words, what is the impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And then there's temporal metric codes, which go into how things can change over time. In other words, does a particular attack or item over time become less likely to occur? So the exploit code maturity. You know, it's something that's extremely hard to do that then gets rolled into an exploit kit. That could change the CVSS. And also new vulnerabilities could be high. They may go down as patches are out or as they're known about. How easy it is to remediate. You know, if there's just an easy little patch you download and put on it, then to begin with, when it's a day zero attack, it may have a high temporal score, but once the patch comes out, it will go down. And then last but not least, you have the environmental metric scores, which will look at the particular environment. So you've got to look at how you're going to modify that for your organization. So you can actually change it based upon your organization's environment. And that would depend upon what type of organization you are. So these base metrics, temporal, environment, you need to know these, and that's going to be on the test. Because when you look at, again, well, golly, that thing aggravates me to death. When you look at this, you need to know about attack vector complexity. All of these would be in the exploitability. Okay, right there in the exploitability. And you'll notice they go in and spend an entire slide on it. So let's see, there's a 1, 2, 3 slides, and you're home. So it's giving you an idea that this is definitely on the test. And it's good to see, one thing I'm very, very glad to see, and you can actually go in and look at different tools and look at the attack vector, and you can actually put down what, you know, is it a network, adjacent, local, physical, and that will change different scores. So you can actually go out there and look at the calculator, and you can explore it. So you can say the attack vector is adjacent. It's a high complexity. It requires no privileges, no user interaction. Scope's unchanged, confidentiality is low, integrity is high, availability none. It gives you actually a common vulnerability score. So you can play around with this and look. So if it goes to network, it goes up. Okay. If it's physical, it goes down because you have to physically be there. Let's say it's a low complexity network attack. Look what happens, how high it jumps. So this gives you a chance to play with that calculator and see how those exploitability factors determine what is your actual score. And you also go down and look at, it's a proof of concept, it goes down. If it's functional, it goes up. If it's high, it goes up even more. Okay, remediation level, there's an official fix, see how it goes down. There's a workaround. And so there's all types of ways to look at these scores, okay? And you can actually set up your own environmental scores if you want. By default, those scores are not set because they don't know your environment. But this is a neat thing that you can do. And I like the fact that you're looking at this course and you're looking at what it's asking you to read and study, and that's exactly what's on the scope for the exam. So you know these things are being covered on the exam. So CVSS reports, you can see here, low is 1.1 to 3.9, 4.0 to 6.9, high 7.0 to 8.9, and criticals 9 to 10. As they say, anything's over 3.9, it should be addressed. You can't ignore it. Anything over a low needs to be actually handled. Other vulnerability items, CVE, you probably heard of it, common vulnerabilities and exposures. It's a database that shows the different items that have been found. A lot of times it will also hold the CVSS score. There's a network vulnerabilities database, and so there's multiple databases that hold these different vulnerabilities. So you can actually click here, and it takes you out to the CVE, and you can actually see the CVE list. So here's one right now, CVE. There's one just came tagged in Levi Studio, HMI editor, and then here's some other. So basically, they come out constantly. That's from the tweet there. Different compliance, we go over these all the time. We look at, the only problem I have with this is these are all pretty much US. So it's going to be interesting as they roll this out across. This is not the PCI DSS. I don't think that's just US. That's throughout the throughout the world. The other thing is you've got the new European data protection. So all the things they pretty much decided to look at here are United States regulations. If you want European, you can click here, get more information about the cybersecurity regulations that are part of the EU. Okay, and a lot of people freaking out about the new not security, but the new privacy standards that have gone in. Yeah, thank you very much, Harry. GDPR, which have come out in the European Union. So, global data protection, EU GDPR. There's all kind of compliance things. So General Data Protection Regulation, that's it, GDPR. So if you do any business at all in the EU, or if you have any students from the EU, there's a big discussion about, will schools have to be compliant with this, which goes in effect 25th of May 2018. And if you are not in compliance, you would be amazed at the level of fines they can levy upon you. All right, I'm going to call it a day on that. Are there any questions as you're going through Chapter 10? Just continue to read and look at those. Are there any questions that you have for me? And then I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to actually stop my recording.
Yes,